The schedule just dropped, and it might be the toughest non-conference schedule UConn has ever faced. You're on the Hoops Count.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby. Home of the champions. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome on to the Hoops Cap Pod. Let me get rid of that overlay on the top. I'm your host, Mark Zanetto, here for the Hoops Cap on BigEastEnergy. Find us on BigEastEnergy.com. That's for merchandise, as you can see on the left side of your screen, 20% off merchandise at BigEastEnergy.com. This hat, Big Hoops Energy hat in the back. There's plenty more. If you're a Seton Hall fan, got some really cool Seton Hall stuff. Just threw a couple of Butler stuff on there for Rose show. And also, how can you support? Super thanks on your YouTube. Cash App, Big East Energy, Zelle, BigEastEnergy at gmail.com. So if you're not a sponsor and if you love what we're doing for Big East Hoops, make sure you support with whatever you can give. $1, $10, $100, whatever you can afford. Anyway, let's get into UConn. It's the toughest non-conference schedule, I believe, since in my lifetime. And I'm probably the oldest one at this network. So I don't remember a time where you played even the exhibition games are kind of contentious. You know, you got BC and you got Michigan State. So let's talk about this really quick. Let's move our support to the side here and let's look at this schedule, right? You got Boston College. Remember, this is just non-conference. This isn't the Big East schedule. That obviously comes later. And we don't know, we know where some of these are. We don't know the times, obviously. That's okay. Boston College on the 13th of October, the Hall of Fame Classic. That's at Springfield. That's also the women playing. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but that's okay. Then October 28th against Michigan State. I did see a comment on the YouTube channel about how, you know, Tom Izzo and Dan Hurley are probably going to take this as like a regular season game. Maybe not so much, but if it's close and they're going to take it as such. Then you have the New Haven, a brand new Division I team. I love that they've decided to do that. It reminds me of when I was in college, my freshman year, Sacred Heart was moving to Division I. That's the school I went to instead of UConn. I know. And what happened there essentially was Sacred Heart was moving to Division I, and they wanted to, you get those bye games. And that's what New Haven's doing here. It's a great high-profile game for them. And UConn to play an interstate soon-to-be rival, I guess. Not really a rival, but, giving them some shine. Then you play UMass Lowell on November 7th. That should be, a snoozer, really. Same with Columbia. Although Ivy League schools do play good brand of basketball, so they better be ready for that one just because it could be a competitive first 7-8 minutes, but who knows. Then from there, you sprinkle in a few bye games, but for the most part, from November 15th to December 12th through Thanksgiving, buckle up. Strap yourself in and be ready for if this team is as good as Dan Hurley believes they are. And he's made a couple of comments about them being similar to the 22-23 team, strength in numbers type team, 10-11 deep, can hit you from multiple different angles. No real star, even though there were plenty of stars on that team that went on to have successful NBA careers. There wasn't a guy that you could key on and take away. They had multiple guys. And Rick Pitino even said, when he was at Iona, very famously that their second team was as good, if not better, than their first team. So, a little hyperbolic, but I think he was trying to get at that. It doesn't really matter what, when they sub their guys out, it doesn't drop off. And that was the truth. For the most of that year, they had some struggles. Again, chemistry. The Big East Conference was difficult that year. They lost to Seton Hall. They lose to Seton Hall all the time, so that's a big revelation. But they did lose, I believe, 5 of 7 if we went back and looked at the breakdown in January. So they started off the year 14-1, number 1 team in the country. Only loss was at Kansas, and that game was that was 23-24. Started off 14-1, but they legitimately were dominating folks. And it's one of those things where if that's what this team is, then it's going to be a special season because we're definitely a Final Four contender. But let's go through these. BYU at TD Garden. everyone's making that about AJ DeBonsa in his return to Boston. But it's really an Alex Caravan home game, right? And it's also a home game for UConn. We can call it a neutral site, but it's a national brand of BYU now because BYU is all in on basketball. They're all in on football as well because they're going to be pretty damn good there. They just have a lot of money, and they hire a great new coach from an assistant coach out of that new exciting assistant coach is Kevin Young. Obviously did some good things from last year. Made the Sweet 16. Lost in the Sweet 16, obviously, but that's okay. They're on the come up. Then we're looking at Arizona. The storyline with Arizona is that's going to be at Gamble. Is LeBron James going to be staying at the Graduate because his youngest son, Bryce, is going to be a freshman at Arizona next year? Whatever you think about LeBron, good or bad or indifferent, he's one of the greatest basketball players of all time. And if he's in the building, it'll be a spectacle. It just is. Be pretty cool, especially if I'm able to get to that game. Bump into him at the Graduate or something like that. But yeah, no, listen, I was a big LeBron fan when I was younger. Not a huge fan of him as he's going on later in his career just because of, some of the stuff that he says and does. And I think as I've gotten older, I've gotten kind of saw through some of the silliness. But listen, also, again, if not the greatest player of all time, top 2 or 3. I'm not going to – that's not what the show's about. His son is obviously a good kid. He's the one that's taller, has the rec specs. Not as athletic, not as good of a player as Bronny was out of high school. Wasn't a McDonald's All-American, but I think he's like a 4-star recruit. So it'll be interesting. I don't even know if he's going to be prominently playing, but that will be, a story for another day. Arizona's very good. Tommy Lloyd is a good coach. He's a great recruiter. Although I would have to say that Tommy Lloyd is a good coach. I don't think he's a great coach. He's had good stock, if you will, right, coming from Mark Few's system in Gonzaga. And definitely gets that West Coast flavor from him and some of the recruits he's brought in. And that's going to be at Gamble, obviously. So now confirmed for the Hartford teams. You're at Hartford. You're playing Texas. That's December 12th. But let's go in order. So we got Arizona. Then you get a breather when it comes to Bryant. Although there are plenty of people that are interested in that because of some of the things that were said back and forth between the Bryant head coach and Dan a couple years back. I don't even know if that Bryant head coach is there. We'll have to check on that. That one is in, it hasn't said between Storrs or Hartford. If I had to guess, I'm going to say that's going to be in Hartford. They typically play all the marquee games in Storrs on campus and save a couple of, marquee games for Hartford, like Texas, like we talked about. Then you got Illinois. Brad Underwood's team has reloaded and has done a big international push. My friend Sonny, who used to do the Illini cast and is on Locked On Illinois, we'll definitely get up with him and talk about that game when the time comes. He's really plugged into that whole world. He still will fight me on Brad Underwood not being a great coach, and I think that's more of his fan goggles than anything. Again, Illinois is going to be good next year. Another Big Ten team. That one is in Madison Square Garden, and I don't know why they would play that game against us there. Shouldn't they want that? I mean, I guess it makes sense dollar-wise, and they're trying to, use it as a neutral site game. But everyone knows that unless, and I say this all due respect to UConn fans, I know that, this is Store South and all that. St. John's fans will hate me for that, but oh well. But unless you're playing Duke or even Kentucky, who travel really well, if you're playing in New York, it's a UConn home game. And from what I understand about the game in Gamble or in TD Garden in the Elite Eight, the 30-0 run that I famously probably watched more than 100 times in my life, just because it's just so fun, is that Illinois traveled really well. And so I don't suspect that it's going to be like 90-10 UConn fans. It's probably going to be 50-50 or 60-40. But the idea is that when UConn inevitably starts to go on a run in that place, it kind of feels like a UConn home game. And I've been there for a few of those. So anyway, now we talk where the rubber meets the road. You're playing at Kansas on December 2nd. I would love to go to this game. I've never been to Allen Fieldhouse, and it's a Tuesday in December. That'll be an interesting conversation with my wife. Hey, I'm going to fly to Lawrence, Kansas, and I'll be back the next day. But honestly, if that's the case, if I can get out there the day of, go to the game, and come back the next morning, that's exactly the type of psycho I am. I would 1,000% do that. So, hey, if you want to help me get there, that's what that support button is at the end, and we'll bring that up here in a second again. The other part is they don't really play as many of these kind of like, I hate to do this, but like, the crappy bye games. They have a break here between Kansas and Florida and Texas, East Texas A&M. And they only have 1, 2, 3, 4 bye games, 5. I think everyone plays 4 or 5 bye games anyway, but they're spread out to the point where it's like you play a couple of doozies and then you get kind of like the break or the relaxation. But guess what? As you know, Dan does not look at those games as like, hey man, you have the day off today. It's another day to kind of keep getting better and keep excelling at UConn. So after Kansas, they play that East Texas A&M team, and then they go back again to Madison Square Garden against Florida. I think that's the DKB Classic. Let me pause and double check on that. Yeah, I was right. It's technically the Jimmy V Classic at Madison Square Garden on December 9th, which would be another. So you got 2 games in New York at Madison Square Garden. You got a game in Boston at against BYU. Home games against Arizona, road games against Kansas, another home game against Texas, and then you have those 2 exhibition games, like the blood game against Boston College. Those, I won't say what I think of them. Eagles, former Big East members. That's all I'll say. But it's the the Mohegan Sun Hall of Fame exhibition game, and then the Michigan State game. Again, it's just a wild schedule. I look at this and I think about it from a perspective of this, right? Coaches will, some of these are games that are scheduled out far in advance. The Arizona game, the Texas game, but adding Kansas, figuring out a game with Florida, figuring out an exhibition game with Michigan State. What this does is no one's going to say to UConn the way they did last year, which is, let me get this out of here, which is, hey man, you play in the Big East and it's a traditional basketball power, but it doesn't have the same cachet as it used to. So even though you've won, X amount of games, we're going to give you like a 3 or a 4 seed. If UConn does what Dan Hurley and staff think they can do, this team is destined for a 1 or a 2 seed, depending on how these non-conference games work, because we all know even in years of dominance, and yes, even in the year that they went 37-3, they weren't undefeated in the Big East. Who they lose to? Seton Hall and Creighton, right? And they got smoked by Creighton in that year on the road. So you're going to run into something that you don't feel good about during this year at some point, whether it's losing another stinker at Seton Hall, or maybe it's DePaul that sneaks up on you because they're getting a little bit better. Either way, the non-conference is what's going to prepare you for conference, and all of that is going to prepare you for the tournament. I know I'm not telling you guys anything that you don't know, but I think the seeding implications is the biggest tell of this, is that we're not the way that they've loaded up with depth and especially point guard and guys who can beat you off the dribble, guys who can kind of take you down off script. Those are all things that they planned on once last year ended. And they feel pretty good about this team. And no team is going to tell you that they hate their team in August, or coach, I should say. As Seth Greenberg said, I think they probably would be pretty pissed off. But at the same time, from everything I've heard, both internally and externally, is that this team is in really good shape because they have depth. If they suffer any injuries, knock on wood, hope they don't, they have guys who will step up and back them up. They have experience. They have guys who are trying to make jumps like a Jaden Ross, like a Jalen Stewart, even though I think he's more primed to in that respect. You have guys like Alex Caravan, who is now primed to do what he was supposed to do last year, which is lead a team of guys around him that he can be the leader that sets people up, that understands how UConn wants to win, how UConn wants to play. And then you add the Silas's Solo making a leap this year from just a scorer to probably one of the better all-around players in the country, bringing in a 5-star like Braylon, adding a 7-footer like Eric Ryba. Options are there. Terrace Reed making a huge jump, probably from 6th man of the year to a first-team All Big East. I know I'm missing his name. Dave Borges wrote an article about how Terrace Reed is poised to make a leap for himself. Listen, everyone's working on their game. So even if they all get a little bit better and you add all this talent and you add all the depth, what's the formula? The formula is they're going to be competing for a national championship, competing for another Final Four, and a Big East title. We did that Spaces last night with all the teams. Pretty consensus that people love St. John's, and I don't disagree. I think St. John's is going to be a real problem next year. But one thing I will give to Dan and his staff is the retaining of players. The formula is retain over 50% of your production and add where you can. And they've done exactly that. So buckle up. It's going to be a good season. Next episode, we'll project. I don't really want to do, roster projections in terms of like who starts, because nobody cares. And if you do, I question your mental health, because if you're insane enough to be worried about who's starting for UConn in August, then you're a crazier person than I am, which is pretty shocking. Again, if you want to support the Hoops Cap and Big East Energy Network, use that super thanks button. Big East Energy on Cash App, BigEastEnergy@gmail.com to Zelle. So that's anywhere really. If you have Zelle capability, you can send us some money. And if you're a merch guy, Stores hat is on sale. Everything's on sale at BigEastEnergy.com. We're going to keep that pretty much probably for the duration of the season, because we think we got some really good stuff there, guys, and it's really high quality because it's drop ship. I don't have like a warehouse where there's 1,000 things and I just kind of like send it to you. Whatever you want. I had a person reach out to me and say, "Hey, any sweatshirts with the Hoops Cap logo?" I made one, put it on the site. It's a great sweatshirt. I have it myself. So that's what we have for you. Make sure you check out BigEnergyMediaPods.com. That's where everything is hosted. You can see each host, each team. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you're downloading all of the shows on Apple, Spotify, anywhere you get your podcast, Amazon, Odyssey, the whole deal. It all helps. Even if you only listen to it on YouTube, go into your phone, go to the podcast app, download it, follow the show. That helps us out, helps everybody out at the network. So go check us out. Remember the Hoops Cap. We appreciate everybody that is following us. We're over 19,200 subscribers on this channel, which is insane to me. And we're just excited for some basketball. And having the schedule out only enhances that. We'll see you next time. Oh, real quick. College basketball fans, if you're a fan of my show, tomorrow, Roosevelt Jones interviews Brad Stevens. Yes, the Brad Stevens that UConn beat in the 2011 title game. Brad doesn't do a lot of interviews. He is a former college basketball coach, now the GM and president of the Boston Celtics. It's a great interview. It's candid because it's a former player of his. I can't tell you how awesome that the interview is. I was behind the scenes producing it. So it's a fun show. Check it out tomorrow morning on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. That is called The Doghouse. But you can check it out right here on Big East Energy. See you next time. Go Huskies.
Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Yeah. UConn, baby. Home of the champions.